So hey guys, my name is Lance, for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who do know me, my name is also Lance. I used to go to Calvary Academy about a decade ago. I was here back in 1999 through 2002. Is anyone not alive in 1999? For you? Wait, for real? Oh. How does that feel? So it's kind of nice being able to do your own intro. I was told that I'm just going to be doing my own intro. That's kind of nice because you can make up whatever you want. You know, I can tell you like what a great guy I am and like all the sports accolades I've had and all these like cool stuff. But that's some cool, not too many. I did play sports when I was here. I played 3 sports. You guys still have soccer, baseball, basketball? You guys still have all those? I did all those. Is that Larry? Hey, Larry. Larry's the only kid who might have been here when I was here. We went on the same bus. That's awesome. Well, no, I know the teachers. Some of you guys teachers were here. Of course, I see Miss Latour, who is maybe the most intimidating, shorter person I've ever met. She taught us math. She was my math teacher. She was wonderful. There's Mrs. Y, of course. Hello, Mrs. Y. Mrs. Y gave me my first D-Hall. Memories. And of course, Miss Silverstein. And where's Mrs. Payne? There you are. I just followed you on Twitter. Who knew? I didn't know you had a Twitter. So I was here for 3 years. I left after my junior year. But both my brother and my sister came to Calvary Academy also, and they graduated from here. So a lot of memories in this chapel, a lot of cool stuff. Made so many great friends here that I'm still friends with, luckily because Facebook is still around. Got to reconnect with all of them. Let's see, well I don't really want to brag because I do my own intro and all. But I did receive an award when I was here. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, it's a pretty elite award. Anyone else here have perfect attendance? Anyone? Really? Oh, I remember when they were doing the perfect attendance announcements, I was just thinking, oh please don't miss today, please don't miss today, please don't miss today. Lance Svendsen, come on down. It's like, oh, you weren't very bright, but you were here every day. That was like my only award. So I'm a youth pastor up in Summit, New Jersey. That's exit 142 for those of you guys who know the Parkway. It's pretty far up there. My youth group is called Elevate Student Mid. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We do a whole bunch of fun, really cool stuff. How many of you guys are plugged into some sort of youth group? Some sort of get together with other Christians and stuff? Awesome. Good. If you're not plugged into something, you guys absolutely should get plugged into something. It's cool just to be able to get around people that are like-minded and want to talk about your faith and want to talk about all this cool stuff. I like our youth group because we have fun no matter what we're doing. It's kind of like our thing. I found out that there's no such thing as boring people. There's no such thing as boring activities or places, just boring people. You notice that? If you're around fun people, if you're on your gang, you're in a group of people, you're going to have a great time. So, one of my buddies is actually here. Where's Mr. Scales? There he is. Hey, Warren. Mr. Scales, can you come up here for a second? Come on. Give Mr. Scales a hand. This is one of my good buddies. We went to college together at Philadelphia University, now Cairn University. This guy is one of the best soccer players I've ever played soccer with. Extremely aggressive, great shot. Where are you going? Don't go. He's also one of the funniest people I ever know. Good, tell everyone a joke. I'm just fine. Alright, so you're gonna have to forgive me for this, but when Warren and I used to work at Elevate Student Mid together and we had a great time, he was my guy that I would always say, hey, I need a volunteer to do this crazy, messy game where we dip marshmallows in pudding and then the kids would throw to him and he'd have to catch it in his mouth. I was like, we need a volunteer, how about you, Warren? So he was always our guy. He's one of the best speakers. If you guys are in one of his classes, he's an awesome speaker, dynamic guy. But this one time I remember you speaking was my favorite. And I brought a picture of it. Lizzie, can you throw that up there? Remember this thing? Yeah. So this was at our winter weekend retreat last year, and this was one of the... This was one of... I know it looks funny, we were both in onesies. Mine was all sports, his was camo. But this is one of the best messages I've ever heard. He's an awesome, awesome guy, a great friend. So if you guys want that photos on Facebook, you guys can check that out. I was stalking you guys on Facebook. You guys aren't actually allowed to be on Facebook here, right? While you're in school, is that right? You can't? Right, bro, you want to do that? Yeah, it's cool, right? right? No one will like anything while you guys are in school. Get it? Okay. So I was looking at you guys on Facebook, and I saw you guys just had your prom, right? For you older guys, older people. Oh, it's prom. Prom. Is that what we do for prom? All right. Yeah. I saw a good photo of Warren on prom too. Why is every pre-prom photo the same? Has anyone ever noticed this? Every pre-prom photo is like pretty girl, big hair, awkward guy next to her in front of the swimming pool. Have you guys noticed that? Anyone? Every single pre-prom photo is like that. I don't know why that is. I don't know. That's what I spend my time thinking about. Also, where's the Jimmy kid? Is Ian here? Ian! Awesome! Dude, you're like the real deal. Yeah. I'm excited for you, man. I'm really excited for that whole movie and all coming out. I'm excited for me now, too, because now I can tell people I know you. Yeah. And I saw you sing. Saw you sing, saw Larry play. What a day. It's a big day for me, guys. Let's see. So yeah, I spent a lot of time doing stuff on Facebook. So I love this place. Calvary was so much fun. I got so many good memories being here. And one of the reasons I like Calvary is because it prepares you for life. Like it for real does. Not like just the whole like learning stuff, but like it actually prepares you for like after high school. Because we can kind of admit that Calvary is like a Christian bubble, right? Like, are we brave enough to say that? Like Calvary is, I know you guys are all like really cool and like whatever, but like you guys get D-halls and like you wear different shoes, so it's like really hip and all. But like I remember I tried to put white laces in my shoes one time because I was gonna be different. And I got in trouble in like 15 minutes. It's like, I want to be different. No, you're not different. You go to Calvary. So Christian middle school. Mr. Chandler was my principal. That was an amazing experience. I remember that. He's an awesome guy. And but you're in this Christian bubble. As much as we don't want to admit it, you are. Right? You're around all your Christian friends, or people that claim to be Christians at least. You get to go to a Bible class. You carry a Bible in your pocket. Well, not maybe in your pocket, but at least in your backpack. So you're around other Christians constantly. Right? So it doesn't. If you're just in this like particular bubble, it doesn't actually like prepare you for anything after. Unless you actually take what you're learning here seriously, when you leave here, it's like a different world. It really is. Like, because most of you seniors are going to graduate and go to college or go to trade school or go into the workforce. And not all of you guys are going to go to like a Christian university. My first year at college, I didn't go to a Christian university. I played baseball on scholarship, and I went to a school in Connecticut, and that is a different world. Like, not being around Christians. And if you don't take what you learn here seriously, right, you're in for like a really big surprise. That's why I like Calvary, because it wasn't one of those things that where I just came here and went through the motions. Like, I came here and I was excited about my Bible classes. I come from great parents. They got me excited about the Bible when I was really young, and they got me interested in the Bible. So when we had Bible classes, I would look at that and try and learn from it. And I remember my Bible teachers and my other teachers, they would use practical examples and all that stuff. So I want to encourage you guys, if I can do anything this chapel experience, I want to encourage you guys to take your time at Calvary seriously, because it's only a short while. And I know it feels like a drag in the ninth period or whatever, and when it gets to be this time of the year, it feels like it's dragging. But make sure you are enjoying it and you're getting around people that actually are good for you and not just dopes, yeah. But for real, take it seriously and get to the point where, because I wasn't at this point when I was at Calvary, and I had to find it out a little bit afterwards. But if somebody asks you, why are you a Christian? You gotta be able to defend that. Because that actually happens. People will ask you that. I went from Calvary, is that more picture still up? I went from Calvary to a secular school called Lakewood Prep, and I immediately had to start defending my faith. It was when the WWJD bracelets were in, remember those? WWJD bracelets, yeah. So I wore them and I had a cross necklace, so people always wanted to know, and I didn't curse and I didn't smoke or drink or anything like that, so people wanted to know why I was different, why, whatever. So I had to learn how to defend my faith very, very quickly. And I want to challenge you guys to be able to do that. Get around people that can help you answer those questions, get into the Bible, and just be able to able to defend that. Because life happens after Calvary, and right now we're in this Christian bubble, and it's you're gonna have a great time while you're here, but then afterwards, life hits you, right? I've had an incredible life. I really enjoy my life, and I've had some really cool experiences. One of the speed bumps in my life happened, I guess, last January. I got one of those phone calls that you always pray you never get and you never want. And my uncle, also my godfather, one of my best friends, he called me up and said they found a tumor, a mass in my brain. And I was like, oh, it's one of those things that just hits you in the gut. And you're like, oh no. So we all, start praying like crazy and just hoping that he's going to be okay. 3 months later, he was gone. 3 months, stage 4 cancer when he found out. It was just so quick. It was one of the worst moments. And then at his funeral, my dad was giving his eulogy, and he said, this may be that, he was talking about, in 1983, he and my dad ran the New York City Marathon together. And Uncle Roy did it on absolutely no training. My dad's a marathoner, he's in great shape, but my Uncle Roy did it on no training. So I made a decision right then that I was going to do the New York City Marathon one day. I'm going to get into the New York City Marathon, and I'm going to finish in 4 hours and 22 minutes, because that's what Uncle Roy and Dad did in 1983. They finished in 4 hours and 22 minutes. So I got up and did my eulogy after for Uncle Roy, and I said, this may be the end of Uncle Roy's life, but it's not going to be the end of his life still affecting people. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just knew that I wanted his memory to live on and the things that he taught me to live on, so I was like, okay, well, this is going to happen. I just don't know how it's going to happen. So it's a month before the marathon, and I didn't get in. New York City Marathon is very difficult to get into because you have to qualify, then you have to get drafted into it. It's very, very difficult. So it's a month before the marathon, I didn't get in. I was like, okay, well, there's next year I can spend a whole year training because I've never run a marathon before. Wasn't a real runner before that, at least not in marathons. And 30 days before, I get a call from my friend Craig who says, hey, a spot just opened up on our marathon team for the New York City Marathon. Would you want to run it? It's 30 days out. I said, absolutely. I was like, I'll do it no matter what. And he's like, okay, well, there's a financial commitment because we're raising money for a different charity. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. He's like, you ever run a marathon before? I'm like, no. He's like, I can do that. And he's like, so I started talking to people. I'm like, hey, well, what is some advice that I can get for running a marathon in 30 days? They're like, don't do it. Like, that's my advice. Like, don't run a marathon in 30 days because it's super, super difficult and your legs are going to be exhausted. And a lot of people just kept saying, you can't do it. You just physically can't do it. So I was like, whatever, I'm doing it anyway. I don't care. So I started training, started running like crazy. Didn't really have, people kept asking me, what's my training program? Like, I don't know, I just kept running until I was exhausted. That was my training program. So, you guys are all here from the Jersey Shore. 2.5 days before the New York City Marathon, Sandy happens the whole time before that, Hurricane Sandy. New York City Marathon gets canceled. It stinks, right? I just spent all this time training. I raised money for the charity that we were raising money for, and then I split the other half with my uncle's family. So I gave all this money away. I raised all this money. I'm like, darn it. Like, what am I going to do? So I was actually in Staten Island. We were delivering food to all the homes that were being destroyed and stuff like that. And so I look at my buddy Todd, and I'm like, I'm going to run it anyway. He's like, yeah, that sounds like you. So I was thinking, well, I'll just do the same route and run, and I know people will be mad at me for doing it, but I'm like, well, I raised all this money, I got to do this. So I was talking to Craig later on that night, and he said, well, why don't we do it in Central Park? And we'll run around Central Park 4 times like they did in the original marathon, which I didn't even know because I don't know any marathon history. And he's like, well, let's run a New York City Marathon, and we'll do it in Central Park. I was like, that sounds like a great idea, so I want to see if anyone else would do it with me. So I went on Facebook, and I wanted to join a group. I was like, all right, there has to be other people like me that are charity runners that want to finish what they started to make sure that they could give money and they deserve it. So I went on Facebook, I couldn't find a group. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I can make a group. So I made a group just hoping 10, 15, 20 people might show up. And I posted on it and said, hey, total respect why the New York City Marathon was canceled, but for us that are running for something bigger than us, we got to fulfill our commitment. We got to finish what we started. One of my favorite verses is Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary while doing, for you reap the harvest if you faint not. That's my life verse. It says, just keep pressing forward. Keep going no matter what obstacles get in your way, because you're going to reap the harvest, right? So I posted that on Facebook, and hoping some people would show up. 35 hours later, we went to what would be the now starting line, where we designate the starting line. 3,000 people showed up with me. Yeah, whoa. So 3,000 people showed up with me. I spent the whole morning doing interviews, Daily News, Wall Street Journal, BBC. It was awesome. It was unreal. I couldn't believe it how many people were there just wanting to talk to me because I started a Facebook group. I'm like, yeah, how cool is that? And I was like, hey, we want to keep doing good. Come to the starting line with supplies, with water, with clothes that we can just send to Staten Island. And if you want, bring money. That'd be fine too. We can just give it away. I'm like, we can continue to do good. So we ended up sending 5 SUVs full of supplies down to Staten Island, and we raised $16,000 in 35 hours. It was awesome. Thank you. It was such a cool experience. Apparently, in Central Park, you're not allowed to gather more than 20 people. Didn't know. And you're not allowed to accept money. Didn't know. So people are just handing us cash and checks, and my friend Todd's like stuffing it in his pockets and putting it in his backpack and stuff. Because you're not allowed to do that. I didn't know that. I didn't know like all those rules or whatever. But it was such a cool experience. And we had a blast. And then after that, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta run a marathon, first one in my life. So Craig and I took off. We ran the marathon in New York City. We did the Central Park exactly what we wanted to, and I wanted 4 hours, 22 minutes. I thought there we are, right? We went at the finish line. We made that our starting line. My sister Kara, who's a valedictorian, the beautiful blonde in the front, she was a valedictorian when she was here. That's my sister, and then me with the big sign. Okay, and then so I'm running the marathon, and then the farthest I've gotten in training is 17 miles in training, but a marathon is 26.2, so I was exhausted. By the end, I wanted 4:22. I was so scared about hitting 4:23 because I would have considered that a failure that I actually crossed the finish line at 4:21. And I was really excited. I considered that a victory 1 minute early. I'll take that. It was such a cool experience. So great. I loved it. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, that experience went really well. But that's kind of it. We're not going to keep, do anything after that. It was just kind of like this one-time thing. And then everyone's talking about, hey, you got to keep this going. You got to be able to. You guys did a lot of good, you're starting this whole thing, why don't you keep it going? So we started the Run Anyway Foundation, and so far we've raised a whole bunch of money for different causes, and it's been a lot of fun. We got a phone call 4 months ago, and they said, hey, we heard about what you did in New York, how about running Boston Marathon? And I was like, yeah, I'll run the Boston Marathon, why not? That's also an elite marathon where you have to qualify to get it. That's when we run the Boston Marathon. So we raised, I think, $13,000 for the charity that we were running for, the town of Wellesley, Massachusetts. And so this time, I wanted to, instead of running 4:22, I was like, this time I'm going to run 4 hours, because that's like the mark of a runner. Like, you're kind of like a novice marathon, you can hit 4 hours. So that was my goal, running the Boston Marathon. So I'm running with my teammates, and I see my teammates at the starting line. We take off, and I say, hey, I'll see you at the finish line. And we take off. I'm so excited. It's my first, marathon ever. My parents are waiting at mile 14. I see them, give them big hugs, they tell me they're proud of me. And then I turn back and my mom yells to me, I'll see you at the finish line. A couple miles later, my cousin Christian, who is my Uncle Roy's middle son, one of my best friends, he jumps on the course with me, he runs with me for 3 miles. It was great, it's called banding, you just kind of jump on and jump off. The last thing he says to me is, I'll see you at the finish line. I'm like, yeah, you will, it's gonna be great. And those guys are fans, my dad, my mom, cousin Christian. They're fans. They're not going to be on the course like my teammates. They're going to be at the finish line in the crowd. That's how I know I'm so pumped. So I'm running. I get to Heartbreak Hill, and I cruise up Heartbreak Hill. It's like this difficult hill that everyone talks about. It's like the worst part of the Boston Marathon. I'm like, oh no. But I got to the Heartbreak Hill, and I cruised up. It was no problem. And I talked to the guy next to me. I'm like, that was nothing. He's like, Heartbreak Hill's up there. I'm like, oh no. So I look up. I see this like mountain looming in the distance. I was like, are you kidding? So. Right before I hit Heartbreak Hill, I start praying, Lord, I need endurance. I need you to help me keep going. And right then, my buddy Todd calls me on the phone. I have an earpiece in and click on. Without me saying anything, he just says, hey buddy, I'm going to pray for you right now. It's like, for real? It's like, Lord, thanks for showing off. So he prays for me the entire way up Heartbreak Hill. He hangs up and says, I'll see you at the finish line. And I see a sign that says, top of Heartbreak Hill. And after that, I just take off. I'm feeling really, really good. And I get to, I think it's 2 miles before the finish line, and my hamstring seizes up. Has anyone ever gotten a Charlie horse? Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, everyone's like, oh yeah. It's a terrible feeling. It feels like someone grabs your hamstring and just squeezes it for dear life. So that happened, and I'm so devastated. I'm limping off the course, and I'm thinking my Boston Marathon dream is over, and I'm 2 miles away. God is good. I walk over, and there's a person there. They're like, hey, just sit down. I stretch it out for you. I was like, I can't sit down. If I sit down, I won't be able to get back up. I'm exhausted. Believe it or not, I was in front of a chiropractic school. They knew exactly what to do. They flexed me out for a minute, and they're like, you're good, keep going. The guy's like, you're only 2 miles away, take off. So I take off, having a great time. Crowds cheering like crazy. You see on the chest it says Roy, because people cheer your name when you're running a marathon. And I figured if I have Roy, my Uncle Roy's name on my chest, is going to give me even more motivation. So I wrote that on my name. So people were yelling, go Roy, you can do it Roy, as I'm taking off. I did my last mile. I can see the finish line. And and that yellow strip that you guys now have seen all over the news. And I crossed the finish line, and I see the ticker says 4 hours. But I know I started 10 minutes back in my corral, and I finished the Boston Marathon 3 hours and 50 minutes. So I was super excited, that was great. So I crossed the finish line, and in my mind it was gonna be awesome. I'm gonna like jump across like this and like take photos. But I'm exhausted, so I like barely gonna get across. Across the finish line, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. My cousin, my family can all see me cross. This is gonna be awesome. I get a phone call from Dad, and he's like, Mom couldn't get close enough. We're 2 blocks away. I couldn't see you finish. I was like, oh, that stinks. Like they're supposed to be there. They're supposed to be in the crowd, with, seeing me finish. And then Dad was a block away. I was like, okay, stay there. I'll come to you. So I go see Dad, and I give him a big hug. I'm like, Dad, 350. He's like, I'm so proud of you. We're so proud of you. I was like, Dad, I'm not the only one who was shooting for 4 hours. All my teammates were doing the same. It's like, Dad, we gotta get to the finish line. I see a building explode. We're a block away. And of course, I do what everyone else thinks. You don't know what in the world's going on. You don't know if it's an actual explosion. You don't know if it's an accident. You're just like totally confused. I look at Dad, and he's like, I think that was an explosion. We look back again. I see another one go off a block beyond that. And my mind just starts to panic. I'm thinking, I don't know where my teammates are. You don't know if bombs are going off on other sides of the course, and it's like a ripple effect or what's going on. So I look at Dad, and I'm like, Dad, look, we have to get to the finish line. Because I know Todd, my teammate, and my other teammate, Wes, they're at the finish line. That's where they should be. So me and Dad, we start taking off towards the finish line. And the only reason we couldn't get there is because everyone else is running away from the finish line. And it's like a sea of people running away, and then finally Dad grabbed my hand, and we can see the bleachers, and they're all cleared out, and you don't know why they're cleared out. You can see like people all over, and you don't know what's going on. Dad finally grabs my hand, he's like, Lance, we gotta go, because we keep hearing people say there could be bombs elsewhere. I'm like, oh no. I was like, my mind starts automatically going to my cousin Christian and my teammates. I'm like, I don't know where these guys are. So I jump on the phone and I call Craig, and he's following us all online because we have chips in our bib, and they tell us where we're at. And they said, don't worry, Todd and Wes are a couple miles back, you don't have to worry about them. It's like, oh, thank God. So then I called my brother-in-law, Michael, and he's like, we're already getting reports that there's bombs elsewhere. He's like, just get out of Boston. So that's all I'm thinking, is just get out of Boston. Find my family, get out of Boston. And then, so I hang up the phone with him, and then I go to call someone else, and the phone is dead. They killed all the cell service in Boston. And that's extremely scary, because we are so tethered to our phone. Like, my phone goes everywhere with me. It's on me right now. Like, you guys probably, you're very, very similar. We're so used to being able to call whoever we want. And so not having our cell phones for an hour and a half is extremely scary. So then we start trying to look for my cousin. We found out where Mom is. She was at some intersection, just parked on the sidewalk. And we're trying to find Christian. And Dad's like, okay, well, we'll find Mom, and then we'll search Christian, or the cell phones will come back on, and we'll figure it out. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's no good. What I'll do is, I'll find Mom, and then I'll start searching the medical tents. Because that's where my mind is going. I'm like, Lord, just let him be alive. Because I, unfortunately, with my dad, we were right by the medical tents. So if you guys saw any of those photos, like, that's where we were. Like, we saw the pictures of the guys in the wheelchair, and saw one lady who didn't make it. And seeing that all right in front of you, it paints a horrible picture, because you're like, what if everyone is like that? I don't know how big the blast was or anything. So I'm, going through my mind, and there's a verse in Philippians, one of my favorite verses, Philippians 2:3-4 says, in humility, consider others better than yourself. And that's a verse that my mom and dad taught me, and like that's the way they live their life. So they said, whenever something happens, you find your siblings. We're just all ingrained to protect our siblings. And that's extended to my close friends, my cousins, and all that. So when Boston Marathon tragedy happened, I knew that I didn't care about myself. I'm going to find my friends and loved ones, right? But I still had that panic feeling in the back of my mind. And since the Boston Marathon, I've read this verse. It's Psalms 1:12-17. And it says, I will have no fear of bad news. I will remain steadfast, trusting in the Lord. And that's one of the verses that I wish was in my heart during Boston Marathon. But it wasn't. And I wish like crazy that it was. So, because I knew Philippians 2:3-4 popped up. Like I knew when I go through struggles and I feel like I can't physically go far. Like Galatians 6:9 pops up, just keep going. But when this happened, I wish that verse popped up in me so I could be like, Lord, I'm not going to fear bad news. I'm going to remain steadfast, trusting in you. Because at that point, I can't do anything. And you guys all know the verse that talks about, like, worrying it does nothing for you. You can't add a single hour to your life by worrying, so why bother worrying? But we all still do it, right? It's all instinctual in us, and we worry over, like, stupid little things like, like our test, or like we got in a fight with our friend at school, or we have to sit in the D hall again or something. And we all like think of like, we get worried about that kind of stuff. But I wish like crazy that this verse was one of the verses that popped up into my brain. And there's, David talks about in Psalms where it says, you need to hide verses in your heart. Have you guys heard that before? You need to hide verses in your heart, and you need to hide verses in your heart for times like this, for times of tragedy. And you need to do it not in the times of tragedy. You need to start putting that stuff in your brain and in your heart before. Because then when something bad happens, you can go back to it. When you have like this super bad day, you can go to these verses that you have, and they can like be in your heart already. So this is one of the verses that I wish like crazy was in my life. And then we were walking around, we're trying to find Mom, and then all of a sudden these two big hands, they wrap around us from behind. It's my cousin Christian. He's like, I was standing in the store, I saw you guys walking by, and he's this big 6'4" guy. I was so excited when I gave him this big hug, right when my dad gave him a big hug, and I punched my dad in the face. So I was like, oh Dad, I'm so sorry, I'm a Christian, and I gave him a big hug. I was so excited to see him, and it was awesome. So I had Christian back. I knew where time was, where they said that the runners got stopped at mile 25, so I was like, let's just get to mile 25 and get the heck out of Boston. So we finally got to them, mile 25, and we got out of Boston. And it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. But it turned out to be this really cool experience afterwards, because since then, God's been doing so many cool things with the Boston Marathon. I'm sure you guys have read some of it, but He's going to continue to do really cool things with it. It's the same stuff like going out in Oklahoma. You guys have all heard about the tornadoes that were in Oklahoma. I was in Austin last week, and when that stuff in Oklahoma happened, I drove up to Oklahoma to help out and give some time and money just to hang out with them and to help out. And it was crazy. You guys have been through Sandy. You saw a lot of the homes that were destroyed, and they're like, the bottoms are all like messed up, or like they're corroded or whatever. Like, these houses are gone. Like, for real, gone. Like, the best houses you could like see into their kitchen. Like, it was crazy just driving through the neighborhoods. I'm so thankful I got to go up there. But already cool stories are coming out of there. So that's been really, really cool. So it's been wild the last year. I never thought that I would go through things like that. I never thought that people would want to hear what I had to say and put my quotes in newspapers, and we got a couple opportunities to be on TV, and it was like, it's really cool, and people are asking, what were you going through? And it was so cool that instinctually I was just saying, well, when this happened, I started praying. When this happened, I thought of this verse. And news reporters don't want to hear that. But that was something that has been ingrained in me since ACA, since Calvary. It's been so cool because those things have been ingrained in me, and then when I left, it was already in me to like keep that going. So it's been cool because you guys are all going to have opportunities in your life. Maybe not that kid because he's sleeping, but like you guys are all going to have opportunities. You guys are all going to have opportunities in your life where people want to hear what you say. And you guys can tell me he wakes up, it was great. You guys are all going to have opportunities in your life where people are going to want to hear what you say. And it's going to be up to you totally whether you decide whether it's going to be just your friends and family listening to you at your church youth group or like at your dinner table, or you're going to get a chance to speak back at Calvary, 10 years later, or you get to go on to some news station and talk about your experiences, and the first thing you can say is like, I started praying. And I went to whatever. So you guys are all going to have opportunities, and you guys can start like directing your life right now, of, like getting yourself on those paths. You can turn yourself into the type of person that you want to be, because right now everyone has two people in us, right? Like I call them like who you actually are, and then who your representative, right? You have who you actually are, but then you have the people that like when I meet someone for the first time, it's like who your projection of like what you want them to see, I always think that's really cool watching that, because like your best friend, but then you see your best friend in front of like a professional or like a pretty girl or something, and you're like, that's not them. Like, don't buy that. But like, you can start designing who you want to be right now in high school, in elementary school, and whatever grade you guys are, and you can start designing who you want to be right now. And you can start doing that by putting verses into your heart, and by getting around other people that like know what they're doing and know the scriptures. And by getting around great teachers like the ones that you have here, there's people in your life that they want to be mentors to you. That if you say like, hey, can I get an hour with you a month or a week or something like that, they'll say yes, I promise you. Just so you can like hang out and like start designing that person that you want to be. And whoever that is, you don't have to know now, just kind of know like the person that you want to be. Like if you want to be, because you guys are all going to be tempted in life to drink and drugs and like all that other stuff. It doesn't go away. It's not like easier after high school. It gets way, way harder after high school. Like college is the worst, and then after college, people are still dumb, and they still want to do like all this stuff. So, but like get around people that matter. There's one of my favorite verses, Warren and I taught at a camp about it, is Proverbs 27:17. You want to remember? As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. Get around people that matter in your life because those people will make you better. Proverbs 27:17 is basically saying, don't hang out with losers because you're going to become a loser. For real, that's what it says. Like, I mean, it's loosely translated, but that's what it says. And then, like, it's okay to, when you go through trials and sufferings, to, like, not be okay for a short while. Romans 5:3 says, rejoice in our suffering, because we know that our suffering produces perseverance and it also produces character. Like, when we're going through stuff like that, like, I knew when I lost my uncle, it was going to be a super tough time. And I was thinking, well, I could do what some people do and just go into my shell and forget about it. Or I can decide I'm going to make something happen out of Uncle Roy's life. Me and my dad have been doing that since, and it's been awesome. But you guys can do that kind of stuff too, and just decide that you want to do that and start getting on those paths and get around those people that actually matter. So my point today is to encourage you guys to take your time at Calvary seriously and to get around people that can actually encourage you. So I want that to be an encouragement to you guys, and more than anything else, to find verses in your life that mean something. Find a verse that you can claim as your life verse. For me, it's Galatians 6:9, because I love endurance running. I love, that thing. I did one more race after that. It was a 50-mile race in the mountains. I did that 3 weeks ago, so I'm considered an ultra-marathoner now. And that's awesome. I come from November not even being able to physically run a marathon to now being able to run 50 miles in the mountains. So it's been really wild. But I want you guys to hide verses in your heart. So when I was on mile 40 and my leg gives out, my IT band kind of pops out of my leg, and I'm thinking, I can't go any farther. I grabbed an ace bandage, I cinched it up, and I said, my race isn't over, I'm still running. And because it was verses that said, I'm not done yet. Like, I'm going to keep moving forward. So those verses have helped me like crazy. And if these verses mean something to you, write them down. Put them on your phone or your locker or whatever. But just my encouragement is to find something. Talk to other people that you see and you like or whatever, and get them to point out some verses for you. All right? How's that sound? Sound good? All right. All right, so if you guys will pray with me, I'd really appreciate it. You guys can bow your heads, keep your eyes closed. You good, guy? All right, he's good. All right, let's pray. Jesus, you are so good, and we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for Calvary Academy and for every single kid in this room. And thank you for what you're doing in their lives, Lord. I ask that you continually challenge these kids and keep just testing these kids, because it says in your word that you'll never put us through anything that we can't handle, Lord. But put them through things that they can defend their faith, that can build character. And Lord, put verses in their life over this next week that they can write down in their notebooks or on their hand or in their lockers and just talk about it with friends, Lord. That they can do exactly what your Bible says and hide verses in their heart. Lord, we love you like crazy, and thank you for everything you do. In your name we pray. Amen.